like in Chile we're all mats.
Oh, sure.
And slowly I think we are we're making that transition and I don't know enough about the culture for the from the original or the original people of Chile because I'm not that well versed, but I feel still some pride to having that in my in my bloodstream. I might not have that much in the culture, but I'm pretty sure that I have that in the DNA. Now, to finally answer your question, which was if I mind being bundled up like with everyone.
Yeah.
I would say that at the beginning, yes, because what I was explaining that you wanted to make sure, I'm not like them, I'm
right.
And now I feel some pride. I like to be included with them. It's to be able to help in the struggle, to help them to understand. Mm-hmm. So then they can see me as one of them and educated.
Yeah.
Right. So they see, so you are you're a Latino and you're an astrophysicist. How could that be?
Yeah.
And then you have the chance to educate them.
Uh-huh.
And some of my friends, they make fun. Some of my friends they say, oh, you're the Mexican that I know that eats the least amount of spicy food.
That's interesting.
They make jokes like that. I don't know why. So, and it's true. So I used to because I was trying to find my identity. Now I'm thankful. I feel pride to be included in a group. Mm-hmm. Now, I have the luxury to sometimes hide as a Latino because I have a funny last name, so people don't immediately think about myself as Latino. Mm-hmm. I never have been profiled. I have never felt any kind of racism in the U.S. at all.
Oh, that's good.
Because of the world that I live. So you see, to me, it's like, I want to be included with them because it comes with there's no tax. It comes for free.
Right.
So it only comes with a sense of being confused with them. And it could potentially hurt my pride, but I don't have any pride to hurt. I'm happy to be one of them. Yeah. But the problem is that I have it comes with none of the baggage. So it's very easy for me to be in that group without feeling any of the burden and I guess the struggle and the prejudice that comes from that people might have towards being a Latino.
Yeah, and it's interesting, particularly in a university town like this, there is racism out there, certainly. And you see it here and there from time to time, particularly like if you are masochistic enough to read like the comments on websites or TV things. I do TV performances, not performances. What am I talking about? Interviews about immigration and things like that. And then so if you actually read the comments that people are making on like the website, it's hideous. The kinds of things that people are saying about this sort of thing. But really in a day-to-day way, I've almost never run into anyone that is overtly racist. I think it's probably hard to be that way here because you can't turn around without running into somebody from another country. I mean, it's just because of the campus. But if you get a little ways out of town to some of the small towns around here, it's a very different story. So have you traveled like that?
Yes,
much?
And I guess that is part of, you see, so there's, we mostly, I think that racism is, I'm completely unqualified to talk about this, but I'm going to, go anyway. Go ahead anyway.
Go for it.
Is that I think it has a lot to do of how different you look from the other, how different do you dress, how different culturally you look. And I guess that from my background, I don't look that dissimilar in terms of the dressing immediately. So, and usually I don't fit. I mean, I'm only guessing, right? I have never been, I've been stopped by the police in the U.S. only twice in my life. And one was because I was speeding here and I was with a friend 2 weeks ago. And I never have any fear of the police ever stopping me.
That's good.
And that is because how I've been treated. So people see me as a foreigner, but they lump into something, but I think it doesn't come straight. I think it has to do with the fact that I dress in a slightly different way that doesn't threaten them. It's a combination. I don't want to suffer any racism and not tempting destiny here.
No.
But I've been thankful. I mean, the other day, yesterday, I was a mayor, and I'm very proud of my heritage. with my family, we only speak Spanish. My kids are fluent in both languages, but
That's
at
good.
home, we only speak Spanish. It's not that English is not allowed. I simply don't speak in English with them because this is my language. I want to love them in Spanish.
Yeah.
I don't want to love them, and that's very personal.
Yeah.
I love literature in English. I read in both languages. I love British music. So it's a matter of what's gonna be the currency of language, and we have decided that it's Spanish. So we're at the supermarket, and of course, my kids are screaming and crying, and we're having a conversation in Spanish with my wife and my two kids. And then we're at the cashier, and of course, we always forget something. So I'm the one who is sent to find more olives, and then I run into the same gentleman who saw us before, and I noticed that he noticed us. And this, it's like this very tall white American who is probably very blue collar because he has a vest from a railroad company.
Yeah.
And he very nicely asked me, "Oh, I saw you. You were speaking Spanish, weren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." "Oh, that's so interesting. Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Chile." "Oh, that's interesting. I never seen that accent. And what do you do here?" He was just curious.
Yeah.
"Oh, my wife is from Ecuador," and so on. And we had a little conversation.
Oh,
And then I had to run because my wife was waiting at the cashier. So
Yeah.
that's a normal approach. It's never, thankfully, so far has never been different.
You're very lucky.
But I'm lucky, and I think that there's I hear from other Latino friends that that's not the case. I have a friend who's an astrophysicist who makes some comments. He's of Mexican origin, and he was threatened, and the FBI had to go and help him because of that. I have friends who've been attacked, and who have been, people hear them speaking Spanish outside of the town, and they say, "What are you speaking that language? Go back to your town." Maybe I've been lucky. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
well,
I've been, and that gives you, of course, a different view. Because when you have not been hurt, when you have no scars, you move around the world differently with a confidence. I might have a false sense of confidence in terms of acceptance, but that has been my experience, and I'm thankful to have that experience so far. It's not the one that everyone has.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, and I don't know how to describe it. And hopefully, you will never have the opportunity to run into it. But it's very strange. It's just like all of a sudden, somebody just doesn't like you, and there's no reason. You didn't do anything. I think that's the main thing about it. It's like, I didn't do anything to you. I'm minding my own business. I'm being completely, a reasonable person. I'm being a good person. I'm being careful, and polite, and all those different things. And you just decided you didn't like me, and it's just a very strange, odd feeling where your first impulse is to try to explain something like, well, why? No, I'm not like that. I'm not, and it doesn't matter because they're not seeing you. They're seeing an image of something that they have in their head.
That's right. And something that has happened, during the current administration is that people now feel empowered to be rude and racist openly.
Yeah.
And that is something that I find very, very worrisome.
Yeah,
hopefully it's just a phase. But I mean, we need to fight that. We need to fight that. One way of fighting it is by getting people to know more Latinos.
Yeah.
To spend time with them, to see them as their, as their brothers. And then you cannot be racist to your brother because he's one of you, So how I'm gonna be mean to that person if he's one of us? So when you, of course that's a very idealistic way of seeing it, but I think it can work sometimes by showing yourself as you are. But sometimes there are people that it's impossible to convince. So you just better run away from those.
They don't want to change their mind. I mean, they're comfortable, and we become comfortable. The older we get, the more comfortable we become in our way. Your way of doing things. I always put my toothbrush here. That's my way. That's how I do it. And don't ask me to change it. You just get this sort of.
Yeah, but we should try to avoid that. I mean, I something that I don't want to be a masochist, but something that I noticed that I find very helpful is to be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like to fail, which is different. Failing and being wrong, failing is like, you're kind of screwed up. But being wrong it's actually fantastic because then you realize that what you were doing was not correct, and you learn, and you can make a new version of yourself. It's like, finding a bug in the code, and you can then make a new version which is improved. Yeah, I think that most of us should see ourselves like that. Like, let's have a conversation with somebody. That person is going to tell you that what you believe that was correct, or your beliefs on something were not the right one, and suddenly you come with this kind of like epiphany, and you realize, oh, I've been doing that thing for 40 years, and that was completely screwed up.
That's
and
right.
then you say, well, and then you try to change. I think if you provide feedback in the proper way, you might sometimes get people to change and be willing to change their core values. Not all of the time,
Sometimes.
but it's
You can.
no, we should try
It
to
is possible.
we should try to follow that model.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with how you approach them. Too many people become combative right off the bat. It's like, no, you're wrong, and they're immediately like, their life's goal suddenly becomes to convince you that you are incorrect, and that will flip a switch in almost everybody and make you go, oh no, I'm not, and here's why, here's how I know that I'm right, and then the conversation goes nowhere. So one has to be very sneaky.
And we have learned that sometimes facts are irrelevant.
Yeah.
To convince people, and that's why. So something that is happening in science, and many people are actually accepting, is that storytelling is actually one of the best tools to convince people to spread. To spread your message, because what you're doing is that you're making a human connection. You're telling a story. Sometimes you're telling a story of failure, of pain, of happiness, and then people can connect to that human emotion significantly easier to your statistics or to your hard, solid facts. People just ignore them because they're not willing to change their viewpoint based on facts. Maybe they're willing to change their viewpoint on sympathizing with you or finding some human connection with you.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the human connection is, I think it's fundamental. We need to, when you're in the business of trying to promote change in your community, in your world, or, as an activist, as a scientist, to convince people of critical thinking or climate change, you're not going to do it with facts some of the time. You need to do it. You need to use other methods, the method that we've been using as humans for thousands of years.
Oh yeah, it worked. So are you willing to give up on the Big Bang yet, or are you still holding on to that?
I'm willing to give up on everything. I'm willing to give up to the fact that this might be a matrix. If
It could be.
It could be, but most likely it's not. So
No,
I would not. So science and it's actually fact based. It's not belief based. So most of the evidence tells us today that there was probably a Big Bang and a period of inflation that led to the kind of universe that we live now. But that's the most likely explanation. It's not the explanation. And for now, because there's no better explanation, that's the one that we follow. And it makes sense. And science is fact based. The fact that we can use all of the equipment here.
Yeah.
We only use it because we have developed that kind of science and technology in the last 100 years. 100 years ago, we could not be doing this. So with science, you cannot just accept one part and discard the others. You need to take it as a whole, and then the ones that do not fit, you improve them based on the data that you get. So
do you apply that scientific method to your own personal growth as a human being?
Not the data, because it's very hard to gather data on yourself. But yes, but I do it in the analysis.
Okay.
But sometimes you need a bouncing wall. That's why it's important to have friends and a community, because
That's true.
you need to then expose yourself to others, so then you can see your reflection on others and see how well are you doing. You cannot do that in isolation. So I try to do that. I try to be less of an asshole every day and change more ways. It's a struggle. I'm trying to be a better person.
So the burning question I have, but we're approaching the end. We're not quite there yet. The burning question I have is, how did you live in the UK for so long and not end up with a British accent?
I guess because I never liked the accent.
Really?
Yes. So it's very interesting. You're touching on another topic that I find fascinating. So Americans have a fascination with Britain.
Yes, they do.
But they have a fascination with Britain from the PBS.
Yeah.
Not with the real Britain.
That's true. Yes.
And I like the real Britain, where they speak a very rough accent, where everybody's blue collar, where you have this really punk rock, not the sophisticated empire that is completely destroyed.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you go
Yeah,
there,
that's true.
where life conditions are very hard, where houses are small and cold, where the heating only works at a certain hours of the day.
Yeah.
And I was never comfortable with the accent. I actually felt that it felt a bit unnatural. So I have to say that I fought not to have it. I clearly don't have an American accent, I hope.
No.
I have a very, what I call I have this Southern accent because
Yeah.
I'm from the deep South. I'm from Chile.
Where did you learn English? In school? Or?
No, most of the stuff I learned it kind of like on my own. I start when I was a kid. I was, of course, influenced by music in English, and by movies and TV series, and I learned by listening and reading and the internet and looking for the lyrics of the music.
How come everybody can do that but me? I'm so frustrated that I cannot seem to learn any languages at all. I can get bits and pieces, and my pronunciation is pretty good, but I just can't do it.
You need to immerse in it. So the good thing, the easy part is that English is like the lingua franca of the world.
That's true.
So it's everywhere. If you open the internet, when I was a kid and we had cable television for the first time, I was able to see TV shows, and I could see them subtitled.
Yeah.
Subtitle in Spanish, and then sometimes in English, and then I could make the connection. So if you care, it's slightly easier. I don't speak Italian or Russian or French because there's not the same influence. I would love to speak many more languages, but I speak Spanish and I try to speak English. So
You speak English very well. There is a definite accent there, but it's not. It's not like one of those where I have to.
I kind of embrace it because there's no way around it.
Yeah, particularly in business or science, I think you're stuck with English.
Yeah.
You're going to have to deal with it at some point or another. But which is unfortunate because language is such a rich repository of culture and experience and viewpoint and attitudes and it's just all the things that go and make people the interesting things that they are, is embodied in the words that you use. And when everybody speaks the same language, we're just all saying the same things,
Yes, it is. And that's why I try to, I'm giving this gift to my kids, which comes with no effort, which is the language.
Yeah.
I don't care if they keep it. You see, I'm not doing it because of pride or some kind of heritage. It's like, look, this is the way that I feel comfortable talking to you. This is the way that I express myself more comfortable, in which I can express love, anger, frustration more easily. I feel that I can also curse with in an easier way without making it a violent cursing. And I want to do that with my kids. And if they decided that when they're old they're gonna drop it, I don't care. It's up to them. But I'm giving this gift.
I've had so many friends though who've tried to do that, and it's like their children resist from day one. They start speaking English because they see that is, they somehow know. They're 1 year old and they somehow know that English is the dominant language here, and so they just want to speak that. And I can't count the number of people that I've known who've tried to okay, we're going to be bilingual in this house, and they speak to their kids in their native tongue, and the kids are just like, no, I'll answer in English.
I've seen it happening. I've seen it happen with success, and I've seen it fail. And one of the ways of making this succeed is that you need to make your house monolingual.
Okay.
So you need to be very obtuse about this. So with my kids, I never, ever, ever, ever speak to them in English. And when they were kids, I used to tell them that that is, it's a bit of an idiot and doesn't know how to speak English.
Sorry.
So that's one way.
Thing.
So you consistently talk to them in just one language and never speak in the other language. But never, when I say never, it's like never. Not even once.
No.
And that works. And you're not mean about this. It's just like, for instance, if my kids cannot speak in English with my mother-in-law. And it's not that my mother-in-law is being mean to them by not speaking English with them. It's just she cannot speak, English. So I follow the same approach. I play dumb, and I only talk to them in Spanish, and that has worked. And then my two kids, among them, they only speak in Spanish because that's what they're used to. And it was not forced on them. It was simply we created that environment, and that works. And I know of the people that have done that successfully. Now it is tough because English is prevalent; it's everywhere. Yeah, I think most of my work I think in English. When I write, I write in English. When I dream, depending on the subject, it might be in English or in Spanish. It depends on the play. So
that's interesting.
And it's good to have this ability. And I see my two boys how comfortable they are with both. Mm-hmm. So when we go to Chile, people think they're from there because they have the same accent. And when they're here, they have a nice Midwestern accent because they don't have our accent.
I don't know if there's such thing as a nice Midwestern accent. It's not my favorite accent. I keep bumping everything. Well, that's interesting. I've always wondered about language and how people. Unfortunately, my father he was like, "Oh no, I'm leaving the past behind. I'm American now. You're American. We're speaking English." He wouldn't teach me. Yeah. So I never learned it, and then attempts to go back and retroactively learn it have just been failures. I can understand conversations. I can say, okay, they're talking about food, and I can follow generally what people are talking about, but I cannot converse in Spanish.
But now it's easier. I mean, it was the case for immigrants from all over the world before. They will get to a new country and they will drop their language. Yeah. Because sometimes it was a one-way ticket. You will not come back to your home country for maybe 20 or 30 years when it was a boat trip. Right. And it was a very hard, and people were escaping war or famine or political persecution. My case it has been always easy. I come back often. Now you can FaceTime with anybody you want.
That's
for
true.
Hours. The connection. Yeah. It's so easy. So nobody's forcing you to lose your identity. We are very. Right. I mean, it's. I'm not saying that it's easy to be an immigrant, but it's still possible to keep your identity. It's a lot easier than it was in the past. Yeah. And you don't need to struggle with that. It's like, I am who I am. Period. I'm a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I guess that at the end, what being a Latino is many things. Mm-hmm. It's ethnicity. It's race. It's food, it's language, it's all of that. And you pick some of them, a few of them, one of them, all of them. Yeah.
It's unfortunate we're rapidly approaching the end of the show. I really wish we'd had more time to talk about assimilation, because I think that's a really interesting topic all by itself. Like, what is that? How does it work? To me, just briefly, I think of it in terms of just learning how to fit. It's sort of like code switching. You can just learn, like, okay, in this environment, I am perfectly comfortable being the way these people are. And in this environment, I am perfectly comfortable being the way those people are. And if I tried to transplant that to this, it wouldn't work. So assimilating, to my mind, is less going someplace and just leaving, stripping yourself of everything that's you and adopting something new, as it is just learning, like, okay, around here, people joke like this, they walk like that, they talk like this, they don't talk in these, and so I know to do that in those situations. That, to me, is all the assimilation anyone would need. But I think some people see it very differently. They see it as like a transformation.
It could be. Well, the thing is that sometimes you can, coming from a culture that is so different, that you need to pretty much strip of everything that you had in your culture, and then you need to assimilate. So then, so if you come from a culture that is relatively similar, the kind of tweaking that you need to do, it's minor. Yeah. But some cultures are so different that the tweaking is so big that you need to kind of like erase yourself and reinvent. depending on the cultures, right?
Can't you just put it to sleep for a while and just like, okay, here I'm like this?
It could be, but sometimes that might go completely against your identity. It could be. So that's, when if you come from the UK and you come to the US, assimilation is trivial.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're coming from Saudi Arabia and you come to the US, it might not be that similar. If you're coming from South Africa and you are white and you come to the US, you're almost British, right? So it's very different. But if you come from, if you come from someplace in Brazil and you have black heritage, it might not be that easy to assimilate. So assimilation is easy when it's just a few tweaks, and when there's not much risk involved in completely changing yourself. So I don't think that asking everyone to assimilate is fair, because people assimilate in different ways.
Yeah. Well, and also how people see the act of assimilation in different ways too. Like we're speaking about it in different. I don't see it as that difficult to just go, okay, I'll put my temper on hold, or I'll put my humor on hold, and just not do that here. But I guess for some people, maybe that's not so easy.
Yeah, because it might be, there might be. Traditions are very similar. The humor might be similar. The way in which you share food might be completely different. Now, if you decided to go into another country and make that country your permanent home, you need to have your heart open and being able to love new things.
Yeah.
Love the food, love the people, embrace the climate if you don't like it. You cannot,
The food, really? Hamburgers, pizza.
Well, no, but you can have the ingredients. I was yesterday. I was fortunate enough. I mean, we're here in the middle of this conference, and at lunch yesterday, Sunday afternoon, we had a very traditional Chilean lunch, which is basically schnitzel, which I thought it was Chilean. But it's actually not Chilean, but in Chile people treat schnitzel as...
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in the evening, I was invited to some friend's house, and we have Vietnamese food. And, in the same day. So, they're second-generation Americans, but they feel proud of that. So you assimilate in the way that you want.
Yeah.
And I think that all levels are okay.
I agree with you. Yeah. I agree that it's okay to just choose your level of participation. But there is a strong constituency for, everyone who comes here needs to become one of us, and wave a flag and all that sort of thing.
Well, I think there's, yes, you should be one of us, or we should be one of you. And that's fine. But you are always changing what us means.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the point right there, I think. That's what some people resist. They don't want what us is to change.
Yes. As an immigrant, and I don't want to speak for all of them, you need to be willing to change your identity, to accept different things, and to like them. Yeah. Not just accept them reluctantly, just, embrace them. Some of them, for instance, I still use Celsius. I have never changed to Fahrenheit, and I don't think that I will ever do, because I think it's a stupid scale. And the U.S. is the only big nation in the world that does it. That's true. I understand Fahrenheit, but all of the thermostats in my house are in Celsius on my iPhone. So there are things that
you're not assimilating.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I have to say goodbye to everyone here. I really appreciate you coming on. I'm sorry we couldn't talk longer, but we're slaves to the clock here on the radio. We have to be off the air. But anyway, you've been listening to CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana, 104.5 FM. We hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.